All right, welcome to the first VETSELITE daily vlog for this week. And today I'm just going to go over like the importance of technique and how that really drives strength. And I want to bring this up just because there was a lot of instances today where I was going over technique. And, you know, I'm not saying that I know everything about technique. I'm still learning technique myself. Like I'm trying to, develop my knowledge as a coach. I'm trying to improve myself in the sense of being able to coach technique and learning about, different cues for technique and how to just, perform these movements in the best efficiency and best way possible. I'm always trying to learn new things, always trying to learn about how the body works, and just the more that I've had programs and all of my lifting centered around emphasizing technique for the weight room movements that involve load, I've just seen better improvements that way. And those are improvements that are not just in the objective weight that you can move, but it's also just something like how it looks, like, you know what I mean, in improving the injury prevention side of things, you know what I mean. So I think having the mindset to try to perfect the movements in the weight room to make sure that you're always trying to stay within a good position, and if you're working with weights where you want to move at a faster rate, then you need to be doing those weights at true load that can allow you to do that without losing the integrity of the position. And I want to give a shout out here to Nick Mascioli, because he's the one who really kind of opened my mindset to understanding that and understanding how important just even, things like the diaphragm and the pelvis and the trunk relationships are to every movement. You know what I mean? So without his insight, I would not have had the knowledge, or even just like he opened a door for me to start going and looking at things in a different way, like, how the trunk and pelvis connecting can activate your obliques a certain way, because if you look at length tension relationship, then you take a chest breath when you're trying to tense up, that actually elongates the obliques, the internal obliques, as they attach all along the ribs and all along the pelvis. And if you breathe up and you bring the ribs up with a diaphragm and that pulls here, you actually stretch that. So when you try to develop tension like this, you're actually in a disadvantageous position to turn on the obliques. So what happens a lot, and this was explained to me actually very well by Nick Mascioli, what happens is you try to activate through the rectus abdominis, and if you look the activate or the insertion, like how much that actually interacts with the pelvis, it's like very two thin strips of tendon right on the front of the pelvis. But when you look at the internal obliques, they actually go around the entire iliac spines on the front, on the anterior and posterior. So you get so much more interaction and direct connection through the pelvis and the trunk by bracing a proper way, by bracing not through having that chest, the chest raised, which therefore raises the rib cage and the diaphragm comes up, and then you're putting your obliques in a bad position, you know what I mean? So if you can learn to create tension while trying to keep these two things together, not crunching, but keeping the activation from that rib cage, trying to get the pelvis and the rib cage together, and then turning on the obliques on the outside, you actually put your trunk in such a better position to enforce staying upright, to make sure that you're not putting the stress on the lumbar. And then you move throughout the squat and the deadlift or the lunge, moving whatever, maybe even even like a glute bridge or hip thruster, you move through that so much more efficiently, and you can focus really on having more load without risking injury, and you're targeting now like the proper muscles for that movement. It helps you to get better firing patterns as well, and it's a little bit of the RPR stuff. I don't really know that much about it yet. I'm really eager to try to learn more about RPR. I really want to see what it can do short term, long term, and more about just the interaction between all the chains in the body that I don't know about yet. And I think that's where this technique thing will lead, because having the ability to wake up, as they call wake up, do the wake up drills and get your nervous system in tune to fire your muscles the right way to coordinate better movement patterns, just therefore feeds into better technique. And if you can feed into better technique, now you can feed into better movement, and now you can feed into better weight, and then you reach your really end goal. So taking the time to really emphasize those movement patterns and to emphasize learning that technique on the back end, it's always been, you kind of, like I've kind of seen people, wherever around their max is at first, they'll grind out something around their max and it won't look good. It will look like, wow, like, hey, you're coming really far forward in the squat, or, like you're not creating tension in the bottom of the deadlift. And then you change the mindset. And when you change the mindset of the whole thing, the whole lens and the whole build up to the movement changes. And when that changes now, instead of you just trying to worry about the weight and getting it from point A to point B, it's like you have that internal focus just to perfect your movement. And the thing that the load is just a consequence of whatever you can create inside your body. And I think that's a really cool aspect and mindset to lifting that I've obtained because of that path that Coach Mascioli has put me on. You know what I mean? He's really explained how much better of a coach you become just because of how you can cue and how you have an understanding of the body and the way that it basically best works to protect itself. That aspect has made me such a better coach, and it's made me a better lifter. I'm becoming a better lifter because I'm learning how to do this. And I think, and I know for a fact that now, my back end, my potential is only increasing because I'm getting on this stuff now. I'm only 22 years old, you know what I mean? And a lot of the people I train, the oldest guys that I train are 26, and they're not lifters, but as far as on the lifting side, we're all young, you know what I mean? There's a lot of potential for growth, if you aiming for 50 pounds a year, then 50 pounds a year on, lifts, 50 to 40 pounds a year, we're looking at some serious numbers for this Vets powerlifting crew. And I really believe that it's going to drive from this technique emphasis. So that's kind of just what's been on my mind today. It's come up 4 or 5 times today where I've had, coach technique and kind of had to change the mindset of, whoever it was so that, that internal focus can lead to the external result that they want. So that's kind of where that came from, and have a good night.